Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service and it is 100% online. With BetterHelp, you can tap into a network of over 30,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of issues. To get started, you just answer a few questions about your needs and preferences in therapy. That way, BetterHelp can match you with the right therapist from their network. Then you can talk to a therapist however you feel comfortable, whether it's via text, chat, phone, or video call. You can message your therapist at any time, night or day, and schedule live sessions when it's convenient for you. If your therapist isn't the right fit for any reason, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. With BetterHelp, you can get the same professionalism and quality you expect from in-office therapy, but with a therapist who is custom picked for you, more scheduling flexibility, and at a more affordable price. Get 10% off with your first month at betterhelp.com/XOOF That's betterhelp.com/XOOF life.
Hey folks, so this is Rich, and my co-host isn't here because he's never here for these interviews because he has a terrible type of schedule. We're doing another interview, which is fantastic, and I have a fellow named Tony, and he's going to go ahead and tell you who he is and what he does and why he doesn't kick puppies. So yeah, there's that. So go ahead there, Tony.
What's up, everybody? I'm Tony. Tony Rambles of the Living Numbers podcast. That's just I'm so used to giving that introduction, so it's kind of second nature. You just shoot it off the hip, like you said.
No, I appreciate it.
I'm gosh, where do I start? Okay, I guess I'm a teacher by trade, high school teacher for the past 6 years. I got my start teaching actually overseas in China, so that was a great experience.
That's crazy.
Man, I'm telling you, just stories on stories. But now, as a high school teacher, I'm in grad school to teach college courses.
Okay.
That's been fun. And of course, I have my show, the Living Numbers podcast, where much like Rich, I like to interview people and I let them share their amazing stories. And then we bat it back and forth. We tell some jokes, we have some laughs, and we just try to offer great value with the experiences that we've had. So that's Tony Rambles in a nutshell.
Okay. So what was your, I'm gonna do this time. What was your, and you don't have to name drop, what was your best interview experience and your worst interview experience? And if you say this is the worst, I'm hanging up right now.
No, I think that much like, in real life, when you're sitting next to somebody, you can feel the chemistry when you start to talk with somebody.
Right.
You know, it just is something that you can't necessarily explain. You know, people both feel comfortable.
It's an aura.
You may have things in common. Yeah. And it just flows. So I would say that I've had that kind of experience with, multiple people, just for various reasons. Maybe one of the recent ones is this guy, Liam Brown. He works at an esports gaming company, and he does like sales and marketing. So, and right off the bat, we're both gamers. So You can easily just jump into, what's your favorite system? How long you been gaming? What are you playing now? So that conversation went on for hours. I think that's my longest interview.
Okay.
I talked to another guy about music. I think that was Nick Morrison. And this guy's brain is like a supercomputer of music. He plays guitars and he had this great story. He got into a car accident and he messed his hands up and, tragedy to triumph, that sort of thing. But we just kind of batted around music, from rap to rock and roll to 70s, 80s, jazz, whatever you want to name it. He was able to just go there and talk about it on a much deeper level. And when you can get that on something that you're interested in, when you get an expert on and they really know it more than you do, and you could just kind of ask those questions and talk about experiences, that's when you have one of those special interviews. Now, on the flip side of that coin,
Yeah. Let's talk about the
you
horror
have,
story.
man, I had this one guy. So I looked at his profile, and I'm not going to name drop him. He had so many great things in there. Like, he's from the West Coast. He worked for like Amazon and Apple. He was a coder. Then he had this story about him and his dad. They took this trip over along the West Coast and they really bonded. So I'm like, man, what kind of stuff happened on that trip? How did you go from, the tech industry and watch it grow to where it is today? Like, I had all these great questions and stuff, but the guy he wasn't really a talker or like a storyteller. Even though we had these great stories, he just wasn't able to kind of bring it to life. And so those are the ones where you go, man. Now, there's some in-between ones too. So sometimes you get somebody, and I just had this one with a guy who formed this band that I listened to all the time. So for me to get him on was honestly, for me, I was just like fanboying out.
Right.
But sometimes it starts and you're like, okay, like this person isn't giving me a ton yet, so let's warm up. I got some warm up questions that I always ask everybody that kind of gets people into the talking mode. But I wasn't getting anything initially, but then it opened up. We started talking about, people love to talk about their children, however many they have. And depending on the ages, that is a secret tip right there. If you want to get somebody talking, a lot of times kids are away in, but it was a slow incline. And then once we got it moving, it started moving. And I'll give you one more. I had a guy who, he wasn't long-winded like I am, but his answers were so good. It was like short, impactful answers. So it was up to me as the host to continue to ask like these good probing questions to kind of get deeper. And he was able to answer with really good answers whenever I was able to ask those questions. So that one it was a shorter episode. It was probably like 45 minutes. I guess if you could say that's short. But I feel like everything that he said was impactful when he said it. So those are kind of like the different kinds of interviews that I've had on my show.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's funny hearing somebody that's not really a talker that wants to be on somebody's podcast. It's like, yeah, I'm a doctor. I don't like blood though. What are you doing?
It happens, man. It happens.
I don't get it. Like, it makes no sense. I mean, why would you put yourself out there like that?
Yeah, I'm like, aren't you supposed to be like talking and, wanting to share these stories? And sometimes you have people who want to do it, but they're just not good at it. So
Right.
Maybe those people could use like some training or some teaching. Like I could honestly help with that because I offer these tutoring sessions, to help people paint the picture. But yeah, man, it happens. And as the host, and this, either you're going to go, all right, this is clearly not going to work, or you kind of take on the challenge. At least that's what I do, and go, all right, this is where I gotta actually, ask the right questions,
Right.
ask the follow-up questions and help them to be able to you got to pull it out of them. And if you do it well, then I think the interview is usable. And then sometimes I had this one guy, I could barely understand what he was saying. I was like, oh my gosh, this is not going to work.
Was it like an accent, or was he just like the Micro Machines guy?
It was an accent. It was an accent. It was thick. It was tough. I was like, all right, let's just hurry up and get this interview over with. I'm probably not even going to be able to use it.
Right.
I won't name drop that one either.
I try to, not being that guy, but on the platform that we use, I kind of avoid those folks, and it's nothing against them. I just don't know what you're gonna say. Like, I don't feel like, yeah. So wait, what? Here, what? Come again? Nobody wants to hear that. That's that.
Yes,
that's not. You end up burning
Not
20 minutes of your time having them reiterate what they're trying to saying, and you can't do nothing about an accent. It is what it is. But
You just shake your head and smile, and then when you understand something, it's like, okay,
like,
great,
oh,
and then
I
you
knew
just
what you
ask the
said
next
there. Yeah,
question.
yeah, that thing.
Like, ah, man, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, what made you get into the whole podcast deal?
So I've always been a talker, clearly, and I just thought, man, people like to have these conversations. And then when you have somebody on that has a lot to say and has great stories,
Right.
other people will want to hear those stories too. Like you see it with, honestly, like Joe Rogan's podcast is a big inspiration for me because he has
My kid listens to
tons of
that.
different people. Oh man, he has so many different kinds of people on, and they just go. You know, some of those are like 3 hours long because
Right.
they just turn on the mics, and he has some kind of outline, but it's just all people he's interested in. Like he's talked about it before. He's like, well, I'll reach out to people because, maybe I like their book or their movie, or they have some kind of product or whatever. And he just brings people on he wants to talk with, and he shares those conversations, and then people get stuff from him. So I was like, I can do that. I would want to do that. And just going through, I go to church all the time. I'm a church goer, and one of the things
Nothing
that we
wrong with
always
that.
talk about is one of the things we talk about is using your gifts to be able to make your way in this life. And part of my gift is being able to communicate and being able to connect with people.
Okay.
So I just thought, how can I use this? And podcasting is a natural through line. As a teacher, I teach a communications and speech course,
Okay.
and I'll be doing that on the college level as well. So it kind of all makes sense that this is the path that I'm on.
It all lines up.
So
Right.
yeah, it all lines up. So I'm like, okay, this
That's
is what I
beautiful.
do. And I could have done a marriage podcast because I've been married for 10 years at this point.
Which
I
is
have a
crazy because you look
2-year-old.
like you're 12.
I am a good looking guy
Yeah, you are.
at an older age.
You're a pretty
Actually, I'm
fella.
only 34.
Yeah.
I'm only 34. Yeah,
You're on my
that's it,
level,
man.
man. I'm
That's it.
36, I think, or I don't even know.
Okay.
I made it 36 or 7. I'm not entirely. No, 37. Yeah, there we go. I stopped counting at a certain point. I just didn't care
Man, I'm not a big like birthday thing,
Yeah.
person. I don't plan anything. If people want to do stuff, I'm totally down. I'm with it.
Same.
I'm just not gonna plan it. I'm not doing any work. Okay, I'm content to sit on my couch and play some video games or go hoop, or yeah, that's pretty. Or play some softball. I'm big softball kick right now. But yeah, that's how I started the show. Just
Huh.
wanting to connect, to have those conversations and share them with people, because I think people want to hear that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, look, me and my co-host, we just we're kicking around the idea, kind of just in passing, for about a year, and
Mm.
then I was just like, hey, why don't we do this thing here? Just kind of do it. Like,
Yeah.
let's put our conversations that we have on the regular out into the ether and see if
Mhm.
anyone will find our idiocy amusing. And kind of, sort of. I mean, let's just put this out there. We have been doing this since Easter Sunday. So, like, we are green as grass. But it's a passion thing, right? We have a lot of fun with it. We just figured, hey,
Why not?
why not just, yeah, I mean, really just kind of, why not? I mean, we have the time, we have the chemistry. And it's kind of funny because the more people I talk to, the more people, because I'm sitting there thinking like we're crazy original, like, oh yeah, man, we don't format it, we don't really tell each other what we're going to be saying, we just kind of get into it. And the more people I talk to, they're like, yeah, no, that's kind of what we do. So it takes a little bit of the shine off of it, like, but it's it's cool because I've talked to a lot of cool folks, and um, I always appreciate people telling me how they kind of get into it, why they got into it. Um, I mean, your story just kind of you had it was like the next natural progression of what you should do.
Yeah, and the formatting thing is funny because I was thinking, how do I want to do this? Right? I wanted to have, you're looking at podcasts, the successful ones, like what do they do? And you can really get stuck trying to figure like all these little details out.
Right.
For me, the important thing was I wanted to be able to have anybody on and talk about anything because I have a lot of different interests. I already talked about music and video games, but sports, teaching, connecting, with people. I've had over 20 different jobs. Okay,
Yeah, I
so
saw that.
worked in a bunch of different industries, right? I can relate in a bunch of different areas. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a believer, I go to church all the time, so there's all of these different interests. So I didn't want to be pigeonholed to one thing. Like I could easily do a sports deal,
Right.
or relationship advice, or I could easily just kind of have a one niche down kind of thing, but I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to just have to talk about one thing. So that was one thing as far as like formatting is concerned. And then I just wanted to be able to do it in a way that was creative. Like
Right.
a lot of people have their name on their show, which if that's what they want to do, nothing wrong with that. It could have been the Tony Rambles show, but I wanted to do something a little bit more. I like the subtleties where people go, "Oh, okay, I see what you did there," or "Oh man, that's
See,
pretty dope.
God,
That's
you're like
cool."
me. Get out of my head, man. What are you doing?
Yeah, see, those are the things that you appreciate. Like I want to be your favorite podcaster's favorite podcaster. Like I want to be that person.
Yeah.
And so the feedback that I get from podcasters and from the people that I have on when they go, "Man, this is pretty cool. Like I really like what you're doing here." I really appreciate that kind of feedback, even if because we all got to start somewhere. The
Yep.
numbers are the numbers, and even within that, podcasting numbers and analytics is definitely not a perfect game right now. It's hard to get anything accurate. But when the people you have on appreciate it and they go, "Man, this is pretty creative. Like I really like this," then that's when, for me, that's when I feel like I have something special. And that's where the Living Numbers podcast, that's where the name and the makeup came from.
How long has that been around for?
February 2021.
Okay.
So
Do you remember what your
2.5
first
years.
year's numbers were?
Uh Probably junk.
Yeah.
Not great. Well, the hard thing is, right? You have people in your life, family, friends, whatever, and you tell them you're starting a podcast and you tell them the idea, blah, 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 but they don't listen to it. They go, "Oh man, that's great. That's real cool." You're like, okay. And then you look at your numbers, you're like, "Well, I know more than 5 people,
Right.
but nobody's listening to this." And so I think one of the really great pieces of advice that I heard on another podcast, Ryan Rossillo's podcast. He's a sports guy, but he's into a bunch of stuff. Great show. I'll never miss an episode. He said for the first 4 years, nobody's going to listen to your show and nobody's going to care about it. For the first 4 years. And I was like, dang, that's tough. But I think,
Ouch.
part of it, it's true. I've
Makes
seen
sense.
it.
Yeah.
Well, you just got to keep going. If you really care and you
Yep.
really want to be a podcaster, you really enjoy and you believe in what you're doing, you just got to keep putting out episodes. You got to keep getting better. You got to keep tinkering until you feel like you got exactly what you want it to be. And you just got to keep rolling. And hopefully, eventually, if you have something great, the numbers and the shine will come through, and you got to be, creative and getting it out there. And it's a lot, man. It's
You
not,
definitely got to be
it's not,
passionate about it. I mean, that's
oh
like
man.
day one. You can't not be, you know, balls to the wall for it. I mean, I have 4 podcasts.
4 podcasts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you do this?
So I don't know how much you saw of anything, but we have the one. It's called the X's and O's of Life. It's kind of a playoff football kind of type of deal, but it's not really anything. It's not anything about sports, but basically it's kind of a shotgun approach. We have 2 topics, and then we do a draft. And then we have one that's called BDE Street, which my fantasy football name is Dig Big Energy, which is just. And then his nickname is Street, so BDE Street. There you go.
Okay.
Me and the wife just started one. It's called Pillow Talk, because our pillow talk is literally like our last episode was about how the weather person said it was sunny above all the smoke, and then we also may have talked about Lizzo a little bit, but it's fine. I may have not been very nice about that. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's it's an interesting episode. I was a little fired up about it. And then we have another one. It's about, and we haven't done this one yet, but it's about football, and we've called it Footballed because we're both bald people. So, yeah. So so when you were talking about the naming of things and having it a little bit kind of a pun almost, I appreciate that. So, because you're right, you just put a boring name on it. I mean, not say your name would be boring, but it's like, okay, it doesn't catch.
That's all you got. That's it.
My idea, but I mean, and I know I'm not interviewing myself here, but sometimes I like to kind of just put my ideas out in the ether, and then it sparks ideas and conversation.
Do it.
I've always been a big podcast person. Always listening to podcasts. I'm always kind of putting them on as I'm doing something. And my kind of business model, I guess, for lack of a better term, or at least my goal to kind of get in the door, was most people listen to podcasts as they're doing something, and it's kind of background noise. My goal is for you to do the same thing, but that ratio to turn 60-40 to our podcast, and whatever you're doing, that's your background noise. So it's real easy to kind of just, you're paying attention to it, you're catching this, that, and the other as you're doing whatever. How often are you just sitting at a table listening to a podcast like a lunatic? You're not doing that. So we wanted to make it fun, and I think we're doing it. So, I mean, you're right though. I mean, that sucks to hear that no one's going to care in 4 years or for 4 years, but it makes sense. I mean, you need to have a stabilized brand. Yeah, you got your friends, your fam, yada yada yada. Okay, cool. Those people will taper off. But if you get people that are like, yeah, man, I really dig what you're doing, and they hit that follow button, and then that becomes part of their week, well, that's kind of how you blow up, and that's how you start getting people to actually care and listen. And we've had some engagement, but nothing to really write home about. But I appreciate anyone that takes the hour out of their day to listen to our silly selves talk about things.
Yeah, that's part of it. Is you just have to appreciate every listen, even if it's just one. Appreciate the 1, the 10, the 20 listeners that you have, however long they listen. Whether it's 1 minute, 2 minute, or the whole 2.5 hours that you're up there speaking. Appreciating each person and each listen, because they all count. Every download, every subscriber, they all count. And I heard something yesterday. I was listening to some stuff, and it was saying sometimes people whine about having 8 subscribers or 100 subscribers. He was saying, imagine if those 8 or 100 people were sitting in the room. Like, would you be right? Would you act the same way? You would appreciate those people. So
Like those
appreciate
people,
them
you didn't
now.
you didn't do a damn thing for these people to go ahead and listen to you. That you had they they had the absolute choice to say, "Oh man, I'm all set. I'm gonna go take a nap instead." Like, yeah, that blows me away. I think that at that point you're too focused on the numbers. You're a little too pretentious for your own good. And
Mm.
I remember when we first started, I would literally, because I use Spreaker to upload all my stuff, and then it kind of gets divvied out to the 943 places it goes, and they have a little statistic thing on there that shows you kind of sort of kind of in real time, but not really sort of kind of in real time. Um, the downloads, and I was checking it like every 10 minutes like a psychopath. Now
Right.
I finally matured a little bit, and now it's like every 15. So I'm getting better, and it's fine. But I talked to one fellow. His name is Kevin Palmieri. Super good dude. If he comes across your pod match kind of platform app deal, whatever, click
Mhm.
yes click yes like 13 times. Dude is amazing. Like I was after I was done talking to him, I was about ready to go like start changing the world and like building wells, and it was crazy. Dude is super good.
Like
And
I
he
can do
told me,
anything.
yeah, look, he kind of had a come up from, yeah, I had this, that, and the other. I had all the money, then I wasn't happy, and then I just wanted to not be around anymore. And then he had an epiphany and just kind of next day he figured out what he was going to do and found his dream and went for it. And God, dude, he is some kind of impressive. Um, but what he told me was, and it was interesting, he had 1,076, yeah, 1,076 downloads in his first year. And in the grand scheme of life, that doesn't seem like a lot, but if you think about it, 1076 people, not 1076 people, but 1076 times people press the button to listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for what? They don't know you. They don't care. Well, apparently they do. And it
Yeah,
makes me
I'm pretty
sad to
sure I had
hear.
less than that.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Oh
I
yeah. Oh yeah.
feel like that hurts your heart, man. My bad. Um,
Oh no. You just feel like well, go ahead, finish, and then I'll talk.
I don't even know. I'm a bit of a rambler. So, see what I did there?
Well,
Yeah, you did.
I see
You're
the
welcome.
subtleties.
Wink, wink,
Um,
nod, nod.
I think the thing that kept me going and that still keeps me going is I just keep telling myself to put out good content. Just
Yeah.
keep putting out good stuff that people would listen to because I know how I am. And this is what I do with especially with music is once I find somebody, I go and look up all of their stuff. I'm going to find all your old albums. I want to see how your music changed throughout your
Nice.
time as an
Yeah.
artist. I'm locked in once I'm a fan of yours. And so I'm doing this for the person who 5 years from now is going to be listening to episode, 21. Like, man, I want to hear what this guy was on when he was first starting. That's going to be listening to episode, 62 with Dr. Gans, and 60, I think 61 was Charlie. And then 63 was when I had the scientist on. Like all of these guys were friends.
Yeah.
And when you start to have these people on, you're like, man, that was good. And then you have another, you're like, man, that was good. And then you string together like all of these episodes. You're like, man, this is good stuff. Like whether I
So
have
do you only do
one
interviews?
download or yeah,
Okay.
it didn't start that way though.
Okay.
So it started off because I just thought, okay, I need to put out an episode every week. So that's what I did, whether I had somebody to interview or not. And so I would just cover different topics. Like my first episode, there was a freeze in Texas. There was a big freeze, like
Oh, yeah,
people's
yeah, I
pipes were
remember that.
bursting and stuff. Yes, that was my first episode, the freeze. And then when there was another episode where Chauvin was sentenced. So I
Yeah.
talked about that. And DMX passed away like in like
Yeah.
that same time frame. I talked about that. He's one of my most underrated rappers of all time, DMX and Busta Rhymes. And so I would just keep putting out episodes. And then I would have interviews kind of here and there. But once I got on a couple different platforms where I had no problem getting interviews. So I would just keep interviewing people. And that has become pretty much the format of my show, where I don't even remember the last time I did a solo episode. It's been maybe 60 episodes since I did a solo one.
Jeez.
Yeah, I've
Wow.
had
Okay.
yeah. And that was I don't want to say that was the goal. I mean, because I did want to just kind of talk about what was going on, but I tried to kind of weave some of that stuff in there as we're talking. So if I have a psychologist on, and I think I had a psychologist on, and there was a school shooting that happened recently. And
It's like
so
a daily
we talked
occurrence,
about that,
man.
unfortunately. And I'm a freaking high school teacher. So
Right.
yeah, you know. But I asked them, like, okay, what inspires people to kind of combat these people? Somebody comes in, they got an AR-15, and you see all of these kind of stories where, these people who have no training, have no weapons, no background in combat, but they stop, a guy, or stop
Right.
a couple guys from, doing any more damage. I'm like, what goes into the head of these people who go out and save people? And so, we talked about that, so I try to weave some of that stuff in as I have people on. But man, there's so many great people with great stories. I just kept going with the interviews. You keep recording them. I got a bunch now that I have to, download and edit, but I have enough interviews to get me, through August, and it's that's where we are. I just keep doing more interviews, and I like it. I like to talk to people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a cool thing. Like, you think about it's almost like well, I was gonna say it's like a digital chat room. Like, a chat room isn't digital, but it's like a new age chat room, like, but it's a one-on-one conversation, because what are the chances that, you or me would cross paths at any point for whatever reason on purpose? You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
it's a
Very
cool
slim.
little, yeah, it's a cool little thing that they put out here, where it's kind of like like speed dating a little bit. The whole mantra of the pod match thing. He's like, it's Tinder for podcasters. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, you're not wrong. Oh man, it's weird.
How have you fared on Pop Match and being able to get people and matches? And do you go on other people's shows too?
So I haven't been invited on anybody else's show. So I use Twitter a lot to kind of market my stuff, and I was on this pod. It was called the Sip List, and it's kind of just, think of like drafting, except just overcharged drafting, I guess, or just that's all the show is. But haven't really. Well, I've had people reach out, say they want to be on mine on the pod match. I usually kind of reach out to folks too and all that. So it's I've had, I think you're number 5, and I started in kind of mid-June, maybe the beginning of June.
Okay.
And I got someone literally at 3 today, and I got 2 other people later this month. And I'm a bit of an insane person, right? So everything I record is pretty much an hour. So this isn't my X's and O's of life episode this week. Like, I still have that to do on Saturday. These are just like pop-up extra things. So I'm essentially putting out 5 hours of content this week. because we are not doing the football
You
thing yet. If we were doing the football thing, I would be recording 7 times a week. So
how do you have the time?
I do a lot of cocaine. No.
What?
So it helps that I work 4/10s. So I have Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday off. The wife works at home. I work at home. One of the kids is 17. The other one is 14. Well, he'll be 14 in like this today, like a week or so. I don't edit. We've never edited. We like to go in raw. Ha 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 ha. But
Dangerous.
it is dangerous for a multitude of reasons. That's why I have the 2 kids. I need a rim shot kind of soundboard thing. I make the time, right? So I love doing it.
Yeah.
It is stupidly exciting, and I have a lot of fun with it. So I will make time. I put it this way: I try to do it. The days I record are Wednesday night because I don't have to do anything Thursday morning because I don't work. Saturday night because I have off Sunday, and I do it during the day on Sunday with the wife. And I try to position it into a place where I'm not sandbagging myself from a time standpoint.
Right.
There are many occasions where I can go a day without seeing the kids in the house. I don't know where they're at. They're old enough. If they die, they die. It's fine. Kind of Rocky 4. It's fine. The wife does the whole work at home thing, and everything is pretty much self-sustainable here. We have 5 cats and a dog.
Dang.
All I'm really doing is cutting out an hour of my day. You know, like legitimately, I woke up at 6 today because that's pretty much what I do. Did a lot of nothing. Went and took a nap. Woke up 15 minutes before I called you.
Oh man, my favorite part was did a lot of nothing. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, because look, I'm in an interesting predicament here, right? So, my wife is stupidly supportive. She bought.
Shout out to the wives.
Yeah, she bought podcast stuff. She literally had a conversation with me yesterday about building a business, like around this. And I had asked her, like, why are you so supportive? And she couldn't really answer. She said, I don't know, I just am. I'm like, that's a terrible answer. Try again. Like, give me why? And she couldn't really give it to me, but I kind of appreciated it because it's not like she is latched on to an individual thing. No, I believe in you because I see something that you can't see in yourself. That's actually a quote from her. I was like, oh, my heart. Okay. Yep. It felt good. And this was like, okay. So when you have someone that will take a back seat to what you're doing, it's a weird yin and yang of like, I feel great about that because I have the time and the opportunity to do it, but then you also feel bad. I have neglected her, and she's definitely mentioned that. She's like, yeah, I mean, you can make time for this stuff, and we don't really have a lot of time together. And it's like, shut up, wife. But
She supports you. That's great. It's great to have somebody like that. I mean, especially your wife.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she knows she doesn't. I was get her divorced, so it's fine. Kind of like little dangle. That little carrot I'm dangling there.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do all this stuff without my wife either. You know, especially when school's in, and I was a coach as well. So there will be, times where I'm getting back super late, basketball, softball.
Right.
And then on days when I didn't have, sports, I would be recording. I got an interview, maybe 8, 9 o'clock, or Saturday morning. I just, like you said, I made the time. I would
Right.
just make the time because that's how important it is. And, she could have complained, if she wanted to, but I don't, we have wives that see that we are passionate about something and that we're trying to grow something that ultimately, we hope will, kind of be an avenue into financial freedom. Maybe we
Yeah.
start to make some money, we grow our platforms, and then we don't have to depend on these day jobs to,
Right.
take care of our family, but we'll be able to do it in a different way, in a way that doesn't have a cap on it. So I tell my wife, I'm like, with the job that you have, you're going to be making more money than I will as a teacher, which I do fine. I think it's depending on where you teach. It could
Right.
be really like, it could be solid or it could be pretty ugly, because they
Right.
don't pay teachers well in some states, and other states, they do okay. So I'm like, I got to be able to do something else. And I can't just do one thing because I have interests in other stuff. So I'm like, man, I want to do this. I joined the softball league this summer. I've been killing it.
Hey.
But I also want to join a like a theater and do some acting. That's something else that I want to do it. That won't be this summer. Summer's almost over. Maybe that'll be next summer once I'm done with grad school. Something else I can kind of get into. So when you have all these different interests and you have somebody that supports you, like our wives do, man, it just takes a huge load off, especially when you have kids and a whole zoo running around the house.
Legit. Like straight to. Absolutely. And you know what? It not to get all kind of deep and philosophical, because this kind of I told you this was going to happen. This went from an interview to
Go
us
for it.
talking, which I think, I don't know. I think the interview process it's nice, it's fine, but it feels too formal sometimes. I think I think you get more out of people if you just have a conversation with them and let it kind of go the way it's meant to go, and that's how you get a feel of who you're talking to. Anywho, um, it's interesting because I don't I don't know. I never really had an idea how this whole podcast thing would go. But anyone that says they got into it and they didn't expect to have some kind of financial freedom is a liar. You don't invest money, you don't invest time into something without wanting and or expecting a return. So
100%.
what's interesting about life, though, if you kind of go on the path that the conventional path, you don't have the time to do all these other interests. You don't. Like, a lot of things have to be cut out. You have to pick and choose. But if you're given an opportunity to do something like this, where, yeah, it is still an investment in time, but minimalistic in comparison to a regular 9 to 5, that allows you, and obviously you need to be successful and all that, so you do have to put the initial work in. So no such thing as a free lunch, but you're given the opportunity to go ahead and expand on your wants and desires and things like that, where the quote unquote normal, Tom, Dick, and Harry, whatever, they can't do that.
And also, this could open up opportunities for you to do those things that you want to do too. Like, so as you grow, if you go, oh man, I want to go out to California and do a show with so and so,
Right.
you're able to do that because of the show could open up a door to be able to, to work with certain people that, you wouldn't have been able to come in contact with, like we talked about earlier. But also you can go, all right, let me do a whole bunch of work this month so that next month I don't have to do a whole lot. I can kind of take off this month,
Right.
have a light load and do other things, and one thing that I'm looking forward to is eventually you don't have to do all of the other stuff. when you start talking about editing and posting, like social media, like you don't have to, like you can hire somebody else.
Right.
Now, there isn't a ton of
Go do
editing
this for
on
me.
Exactly. I don't want to do this. Here, you do it.
Right.
Now I can do the stuff that I want to do. Even with shows like ours, like I don't have a ton of editing on my show.
Yeah.
But I have my little intro I put on and my outro. Find my clip that I want to put at the beginning of it, and so there's still a level of editing that needs to be done, and I have to listen to it. So if I can, well, once I'm able to get somebody else to do that stuff, like that's going to free up time to be able to do other things and put more resources into maybe finding people to come on the show or going to physical location places.
Yeah.
And talking to people and that kind of thing. So yeah, it kind of offers this versatility and a level of freedom, that we desire to get to in life, whether you're doing it through podcasting or something else.
Yeah. I mean, this feels very much like one of those, the whole tired trope of it's a job, not a hobby. Well, fair, but it feels like one of those small little gray areas where it's like, I mean, yeah, but it could be both. Which, I mean, no one really loves their job, right? You don't. I don't care what you do.
Well, I have to
Oh,
push
here we
back.
go. Here's the anomaly
Push
guy.
back.
All right, go ahead.
I think if you get into something that you really love to do, then you can love your job. That doesn't mean that it's not work.
Yeah.
Because anything that's going to be successful is going to take a certain level of work, but you can still love it. Like I love being a teacher, man. It's exciting every day. Well, I'm not going to say every single day, but I would say 9.9 and a half, 95 out of 100 of days. I'm just like, this is great. Like, let's see what's going to happen today. Like, let's see what these crazy kids are going to say, what my teacher next door, who I'm real cool with, like, let's see what they got going on. We talk about golf and the weekend and what principal is going to do what. So I think when you find enjoyment in the job that you have, then yeah, you love what you do, even though there's going to be some things that you don't like to do or don't want to do. Like you can still love it. So even with podcasting, right, once this becomes eventually a full-time all the time thing, there's going to be some work to do, but I'm still going to love it. So, and anybody who's in that situation where they love what they do, it doesn't negate the work that has to be done either.
So I have to rename you Tony Liar. I mean, what? Yeah, the kids they're not listening no more, right? No, I get it. And no, so you do actually have a rewarding thing, right? You are a teacher. You are literally framing the minds of the kiddos. So yeah, fair enough. You're in one of those platforms where, yeah, you actually may be able to enjoy what you do. So that's it's not really a fair blanketed statement, but I'm going to go from the
There's a
general.
lot of teachers who hate it though.
Oh yeah, well, it's the same idea as the people, like the interviewers that you had that didn't like to talk. It's like, well, what are you doing then, man? Like, what did you think you were going to get into here? So, like a fireman complained he got burned at work. It's like, well, I mean, those things will happen, type of thing. But I think just from the general standpoint of the general kind of Joe Schmo, they don't like their job. It feels like work. I feel like doing a podcast, running a network, essentially. If you are actually passionate about it, which we both seemingly are, though are in the same vein on that end of the spectrum, then it doesn't really feel like work. I mean, yeah, there are some tedious things and some frustrating things and annoying things, but I mean, it's just kind of life, man. Like you can't, think about what you're actually trying to build, and that'll keep you going. And I found a lot of people start doing these things, then they don't have the success that they want immediately because instant gratification is a silly thing. and they quit.
Yep.
Like, if you well, I mean, technically you can't hear our first episode, but our first episode was recorded on my iPhone on the couch, and green is grass, man. And like, I have the phone in between us, and he's like, me and him were both like, yeah, so, and it's like, what are you doing? Those aren't even words. Like, get the phone out of your mouth. Like, and it's funny because it's only been since Easter Sunday, and we're by no stretch professionals, but we have a setup, and it's humbling. And if you haven't done this, go listen to your first episode, because you talk about kind of a cringy thing. It's like looking at your high school yearbook, right? You hear things, and you're right. You're like, oh God, what am I doing? And you appreciate it though, because now that you've gotten to the point where it's like, okay, now I sound like I have a firm grasp on the English language and things like that. You sound like you're mildly an adult, and it works out. And you think back in the days of Easter, and you're like, oh man, what was I trying to do? And you very easily could have quit at that point. And what about you? Like, I mean, did you ever have points where you're just like, man, I'm done. I can't do this no more. I'm all set.
No. I've never had any quitting points like, but I have had points where I'm like, man, I gotta figure out what else can I do to grow, to make some money, to get my name out there.
What did you do? I'm actually real curious about that.
Well, I try to get into places where other podcasters are. So that might be Facebook groups, which hit or miss.
Yeah.
Getting on other people's shows, right, through Podmatch, and also use matchmaker.fm. It's basically like Podmatch, same deal.
Right.
I went to a conference called Podcast Movement last year. That was awesome. It's all a bunch of podcasters come together, and they have speakers, and they have parties and stuff like that.
Really?
Great. Yes, it's in Denver this year, which, man, I don't know if I got the money to go. It'd be great to go, but I looked. I mean, it's not really the tickets that kill you. It's getting the hotel and
right, staying there.
It's 4 days, I think.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, man. But I'm telling you, like, it was great. It was
okay.
A lot of fun. Met a bunch of great people that I still keep in contact with now. I mean, it was just a year ago, and so doing stuff like that helps to get your name out there, get in front of other people. I've what's the other thing that I've done? Social media.
Yep.
A couple of people they tell me. So one lady, she's from the Good Girlfriends podcast. Her name is Sybil. And then Cody was with them too, and Kariga, all them people. And she said, on social media, you got to grow your following. And the thing that you got to do is just post. Like, keep posting, post stuff all the time. It does not have to be perfect. Post stuff about your podcast, but also post stuff about your life, who you are, because people want to know that person too, not just, oh, here's a bunch of podcast clips. If they were watching your show, then they seen those clips already. But posting stuff about who your life, your interests, stuff that you do. Just keep posting. Don't try to make them perfect. And that's one thing that I really try to do now, because I didn't grow up with social media like that. We didn't grow up with social media like that. We didn't have social media when we were, 5 or 6 or 8, 10, 12, going through high school, middle school. We didn't have it. We just hung out, and the stories with your friends. You had those stories. It was like, you had to be there. You missed something.
Yeah, there you go.
Sharing. There was no sharing. Nobody knew.
It was all word of mouth. Game of telephone.
That was it. Telephone. Calling people on the landline. Of course we had cell phones eventually, but I didn't get one till I could pay for it myself and got a job.
Yeah.
But so my first instinct is not to share or go live or put this on my stories, but I've gotten more into that. And one thing that helped me was having kids, having having a kid.
Yeah.
People always want pictures. They always want videos. They want to see, especially because my family doesn't live here in Houston. I'm from Detroit. So they don't get to, see, the grandson, nephew, on a regular basis. So people always want
Right.
pictures. So that's helped me to kind of stay in the mindset of taking pictures and videos and stuff like that. And of course, on social media, people love kids, so yes, I'm putting my son on social media to help grow my platform and share who I am. Sue me, but just sharing more of my life. I hope to get some softball footage this Friday, but yeah, those are some things that I've done. And every YouTube video you watch, they're like, go on other people's shows, go on other people's shows. That's how you get in front of new audiences. And, hopefully with my boy Rich, this will get me in front of a new audience and, people will go listen.
Yeah, and look, I'm super big about that stuff, right? So I completely despise social media for the most part. Not gonna lie to you. But I will say I generally use Twitter for the most part to kind of. I saw you. All of them are really just kind of marketing kind of tools. But I will say,
Yeah,
Twitter has been a kind of a cool thing because I actually have got to speak to a bunch of random people and kind of got the word out more with that. And I mean, if you can navigate the dumpster fire that is Twitter and the overt political / racism stuff that's on there, you can kind of navigate around that stuff. There are some decent people there. And I know anytime I have somebody on or I'm on them, on theirs, I'm very like, hey, give me your stuff. I put it in the giant description notes that I have. And, obviously if they want my stuff, here you go, yada, yada, yada. It's not a prerequisite or anything like that. I mean, it's up to you. But yeah, I'm real big about boasting about people, and I'm not like, I don't kind of just say things either. I will tell you the first guest I had on here interview, like pretty white bread, not a bad guy by any stretch. But it was kind of similar to your situation where you were just like, dude, give me something to latch onto so we can conversate. So, I really appreciated you being on. Like, you're actually a real interesting cat, and we have a real similar kind of startup here, and I dig that, and I like the whole, like the whole family man aspect, and the fact that you asked me questions. No one's done that yet. Like, just overtly said,
man.
well, what about you? I was like, me? Oh, well, I've never. So, I don't know. I definitely can see why you do your show the way you do. I don't know. I just, it's interesting to hear someone kind of specifically just do an interviewed podcast. You're like Jimmy Fallon. You're like the Jimmy Fallon of like podcasting now. Yeah.
Jimmy Fallon. Wow.
I don't know. I couldn't think of anybody else. I'm sorry.
Hey, Jimmy Fallon is a big deal.
I mean, fair enough.
I like when people ask me questions on my show too. So, and then I'm just naturally inquisitive. Like, I'm always thinking. So when you say something interesting, and it's the same on my show, like I have like a loose outline. Like, I kind of have stuff that I know I want to hit. But if they say, oh yeah, I got a club foot, I'm like, whoa, wait a second, time out.
Right.
We gotta talk about this club foot. Like,
yeah,
how do you do it? What has changed in life since obviously you can't walk the same? Do you still exercise? Do you gotta clean it off and sanitize it? Like, how does this work? You in the bed with a woman? Like, okay, these are just off the top of my head questions.
Oh man,
come to mind. And so I think that is the cool thing about interviewing people and the way that I do it, because there's not like this strict script that I have.
You can't do it that way.
No,
I just sent you an email if I wanted to know that. Like, meh.
Man, I was pitching somebody. I won't say who, but they were on TV. And they basically was like, okay, well, what do you want to ask? Like, what are the questions? What's the, why? And so I put a pitch together, and I actually did it through video because I'm like, man, they probably have people sending emails all the time. Let me make a video on YouTube and send it to them. Trying to get creative. And I saw, which I feel like was a good sign, is there were like maybe, I think it was like 8 or 9 views on the video. So that says to me that somebody was interested, because it's an unlisted video. It's not like for public consumption. The only people who could watch it are people who had the link.
Oh,
so
okay.
They checked it out. They looked at it. It probably went around the table. Hey, what do we think about this guy and his numbers, podcast, whatever this is? I ultimately didn't get a chance to interview that person. But, kind of having a plan helps, when you're interviewing people, because they do kind of want to know. They don't want to be caught off guard, especially if they're not familiar with your show. So having that outline, I always typically go origins first. Like, how did it start? I don't ask the question that way, though, because to me, that's kind of boring. It's too straightforward. I check out their background, where they're from, and say this person is if it was Elon Musk, right? Just to throw a name out there people know. I will go, when you were 5 years old, like, did you know that at some point you were going to create Tesla? Like, were you tinkering with stuff, taking stuff apart, putting it back together? Did you love cars? Like, did you see any kind of inklings looking back at your life as a kid that you would be at this point from this thing that you created? And they go, well, let me look back. Let me think about that. So I think when you give people that kind of hint, then it gives them kind of this, they have to really think about it. They have to be introspective. And that's when you start to get these wonderful answers that they probably don't give on other shows because they're not asking the questions like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Now I'm just reevaluating the whole way I went about today. Oof. Thanks for that, friendo.
That's what I do, man. I'm a teacher.
No, that makes sense. Huh.
Yeah, because I'm sure maybe you've listened to some of your guests on other shows, and you're like, how can I get something different? Like, I don't want to get the same canned answers that they got when they do interviews on, 30 different shows or however many, whatever, especially because you're on Podmatch as well, especially because you may see me on your show, then you may see me on somebody else's show from Podmatch, another person from Podmatch. Like, there's this one guy who I've had on my show who has a show, and he's great. Dan Klauser, he's awesome. I would see like the people that I interview on his show too. I'm like, dang, Dan, you're just all over the place, man. You're getting all these great people too. So I'm like, how can I distinguish my show from somebody else's and the answers that they would give? So you have to be creative with the questions that you ask. What parts of life do you want to bring up? What kind of research you do. So that is where a lot of that has come from, just making my show different than, the other person's.
No, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I like the approach of I pass you the ball, but that is absolute. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, take it, use it.
Oh yeah, I'm stealing it 100%. Sorry, not sorry.
Don't be sorry, man. Just send your listeners to my show too.
Oh yeah, I mean that. Believe me, as long as you send me your stuff, because I've had a few people like delay. I'm like, send me your stuff so I can upload it. What are you doing? Let's get it out there. So, yeah, man. Oh, see, I like that you ended this on. You caught me off guard. I'm like, oh. Now I'm just replaying it in my head. Like, we should have did that. I should have said that. I should have went over that. Yeah. You damn
For the next
teachers.
one. Wait, so you have the X's and O's. So
Yeah.
that's not what this is.
No, this is the X's and O's, so it just goes out in the
Okay,
episode log as well. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I saw that one. I was like, man, this is pretty dope. I like this.
Thank you. I thought about making a whole nother one, but I'm like, no, man, just keep adding it to it. Like you're creating probably more work than you need.
So when I hear, and this is just me like brainstorming, like when I hear the X's and O's, I'm thinking, okay, you can kind of make that podcast like, okay, what is offense and then what is defense? Like you could kind of separate it into what are parts of somebody's life where they were on the offensive, like they was grinding, they was getting after it, they was going out there, they was getting it. And then some parts where they were on the defensive, like life was coming at them like crazy. What did they do? How did they shift? How did they become more agile and in their management or whatever the case may be? So like that's just kind of me like thinking through, man, the X's and O's of life and trying to figure it out.
Yeah, we didn't really know what we were going to go with, what we were going to do with the title. Initially, we had just the twos, that and BDE Street, and BDE Street was just X's and O's with the same idea with more cussing, and like we decided that was actually no. The wife decided she was like, yeah, this is bad. I don't even listen to it anymore. And I was like, oh, that hurts. Don't do that to me. So we approached that show as a singular topic one, and the X's and O's is kind of play on the words of the football draft as well and all that. But yeah, no, because I've had people actually say like, yeah, man, with that name, I kind of figured that you guys would be tackling more impressive stuff. And I'm like, well, it's not like we don't tackle anything kind of impressive, but it is more of the lighthearted, silly stuff. I mean, on the BDE Street, we've covered the word love, the word trust, patience, just kind of our just evaluations of what those things are and what that actually means. And
it sounds like they should be flipped.
Yeah, right.
Just going by the titles,
you're not wrong.
X's and O's of life. You're like, oh man, that's supposed to be the. And then you got BDE Street, kind of knowing what the names mean.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, that's just gonna be the
that's a silly one.
Around.
I mean, I think this might actually end up being a thing where I just merge the two, and we have it may be like an hour and a half show, and dedicate half hour to a subject, another half hour to a subject, and a half hour to a draft, and there you go. And because I want them to be different from each other, but the more I think about it, I don't think I really need that.
Hey, agility is good, man. Being able to turn when you need to turn. It's a good thing.
Yeah, man. I talked to you for an hour. You changed my life over here. Good Lord.
Hey, I'm here to offer value, right? That's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah. And anyone that has a conversation with anybody and pretends that they can't extract something out of that conversation is a liar as well. So, Well, look, plug your stuff. Because obviously I want you to send it to me too, so I can put it in the show doc there, so everyone can hear. Plug all your stuff here, your show, what it's about. Your time to shine here. Go ahead.
The Living Numbers podcast. You can find it Apple, Spotify, YouTube. I do video as well, so you can see my background with my sports, my Detroit stuff, some Pokemon, some Star Wars. The Living Numbers podcast is much like this. Where I just interview people and they tell their stories and we just kind of walk through life, and I tell stories of mine. They tell their own stories as well. I'm also a public speaking tutor, so you can have one-on-one sessions with me and we can kind of go over things that you want to do in life, however you want to present them. And I mean, that's what I do. You can have me on your show as well. There we go. That's the last thing. Have me on your show.
Oh, absolutely.
Do it through Podmatch, or we can do an email at onetonyrambles@gmail.com. And the link tree, which I have already sent to my boy Rich, has all of these things there. So that's where you can find the show. You can request me as to be on your show, and you can request me if you want one-on-one coaching on interviewing or public speaking. Voila, boom. Oh yeah, follow me on IG and TikTok at the.
There you go. Look, I think
pictures and videos of my son.
Yeah, see, there you go. Everyone likes kids. Well, look, man, I appreciate it. I am absolutely not opposed to a part 2 of this. I'm always free, clearly. But sincerely, thank you for taking the time out. Thanks for showing up. Unlike the last 2 guests, wink, wink, wink. You know who you are. Legit. I can't even. That's one thing I guess I will put out in the ether. I know I've been doing a lot of interviews lately, and I love it. I really do enjoy it. It's not just because to get my stuff out there. Obviously, once again, I would be lying if it doesn't benefit me in that way as well. But exposure is exposure. So this is a business where I think everybody can eat. There doesn't have to be, some kind of huge global conglomerate. Like Rogan can't run the world type of thing. You know what I mean? So, but it's an enjoyable thing, and it's not always easy to get the people on, but when they do, and it actually ends up being a good guest, it's always appreciated. So, I'm good if you're good here.
Hey, Rich, it was fun, man. This was great.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no worries. And like I said, anytime you want back on, more than welcome. So, my name is Rich, and what's your name?
Tony Rambles.
Yeah, it is. And this is the X's and O's of life.